It is funny to me. We got to this point for so long. There was this argument against Utah and this conversation of Pac-12 talent. What is Pac-12 talent? Do you just say that because you're in the Pac-12 and you get those kids so that makes them Pac-12 talent? That really is the difference, is when the kids that are coming in, even new kids, even your unproven kids, had offers to several different colleges, legit universities. We're going to go in and compete for a spot. I think that's the type of talent that people were talking about coming in. And there's a major difference between those kids generally and the kids that have a San Diego State offer and a San Jose State offer and a New Mexico State offer and choose Utah because it's by far the best school. And Utah had a lot of those guys, and it's easy to point out the Eric Weddles and the Alex Smiths that work out. There are 10 guys that didn't work out that had those same offers for every Alex Smith, every Eric Weddle.
You cannot fake an offer to Oregon. You can't sneak your way to get an offer to USC or UCLA. When these schools offer you, they have done an inordinate amount of research. They've called everyone they can. They've talked to your coaches already. They've watched your film. They've probably seen you in person. Very few kids get offered sight unseen. So when this happens, it matters. And back to your point, scholarships are great, but they are not all equal, and players know that. And it matters because Arizona State can't make the same mistakes that New Mexico State can. Okay, maybe you're not a superstar player at New Mexico State, but by the time you're a senior, you start. Great, that's fine. But at LSU, if you don't play for 4 years, you're a dud. You're taking up a scholarship because there's a 5-star kid waiting to pass you up. Now, I think it's interesting to go through some projected matchups here. If we're talking about the opener for both teams, Utah and BYU play. Our friends at KSLSports.com gave us a projected depth chart for BYU. That's Mitch Harper, our dear friend and former colleague, still in our hearts, though, of course. But he went through BYU's depth chart, and a couple of things stood out that, I'm looking at BYU's defensive line, and I like a lot of these names. I like Devin Kafusi. I like Kairos Tonga. He'll play in the NFL. Trajan Peely's a great player, but right now he's kind of a combo hybrid DN linebacker in there. I'm not sure either one of these guys are a better matchup than what Utah has on its offensive line. And Utah's game a year ago was clearly one where the Utes were underestimating BYU, because BYU's front seven was pushing Utah's O-line around last year in the first half. And then the Utes realized, we got to buck up. Troy Taylor pulled his head out of his armpit and started running the ball a little bit and stopped asking Jason Shelley to make too complicated of throws. You got to adjust and adapt. And it took the Utes a long time to do that. But in the first half, you can't deny that BYU's front won that matchup against Utah's O-line. This feels like a much different group, though, on the O-line this year. Remember, Nick Ford and Orlando Umana were both bouncing around from center to guard last year?
Yep.
Jackson Barton was a standout at left tackle, and Darren Paulo was a great right tackle last year. But inside, there was some screwiness.
Yep.
Jordan Ungasiva and Lo Falamaka at times. Lo was just in and out of the lineup at times. And then Jordan Ungasiva's a really talented player who made mental mistakes at a few points early on. So these are just a few mistakes inside that were costing the Utes a lot of momentum. It feels like Orlando Umana and Nick Ford will be more settled now. Nick Ford's not best suited to play tackle, but it's an interesting changeup. Let's say he went from right tackle in spring to left guard in fall camp. It's a different stance, and it's a different set of space. But I think playing both positions, which are completely different, they'll make you appreciate the other. It's like taking your neighbor's wife out on a date just one time, and it makes you really go back to your own wife and appreciate some of the things that she has.
That happened to you? Did you take your neighbor's wife out to dinner?
It's just kind of a thing we do, just like every once in a while, just to make sure.
Swap?
No, it's not a wife swap.
Pulp Fiction. Sounds like a wife swap.
No, it's not a wife swap.
Careful.
We take each. Wait, what do you mean Pulp Fiction? I didn't get that.
Foot rub?
You talking about heroin?
You end up getting thrown through a glass house.
Oh yeah, no, there's no foot rubs here.
Okay.
I'm just saying, it's a thing we do. You take, like once a month, you take somebody else's wife out to dinner. Nothing romantic.
Sounds like a wife swap to me.
No, it's not a wife swap.
It didn't end up great for John Travolta in Pulp Fiction.
Okay, this is not John Travolta.
I mean, that wasn't his fault.
Nobody does heroin.
I mean, it was a rough night.
On my block, nobody does heroin.
Well, he didn't think she was going to do heroin either. He was in the bathroom. Don't let her wear your coat.
That's a red flag on a date.
Don't let her wear your coat.
Yeah.
If they do heroin.
Yeah.
Usually.
It's a red flag. On a first date, I would say. Anyways, I didn't mean to open up this can of worms. I just was saying.
You're a swinger now.
No.
They were swinging in Pulp Fiction.
I don't know if he was.
They were swing dancing, JP.
Oh, right.
You don't know the difference. It's an interpretive dance. Grow up.
I'm not swinging. I'm interpretive dancing.
Steve Buscemi was Buddy Holly?
You can send a homeless child to school with the necessary supplies. ESPN 700 and the Utah Eye Centers encourage you to take an apple from the road home apple tree. Make a positive impact on a child's life. Visit any Utah Eye Centers or ESPN700sports.com for more details. Okay. KSLSports.com, Mitch Harper released the BYU depth chart. We've been talking about it. Offensive line is going to be really good. That's going to be a strength for BYU. In fact, it's their biggest strength, along with Zach Wilson, their quarterback, which is big. That neutralizes Utah's defensive line. Now, it doesn't eliminate Utah's defensive line. There's no such thing as truly eliminating a great defensive line. Doesn't matter how good the offensive line is. You're going to get a sack. You're going to get quarterback pressures. You're going to be able to bottle up the run game. There's a lot that Utah's defense is going to be able to do because Leki Fotu, Bradley, and I mean, honestly, if you're picking the 4 defensive linemen for Utah and adding in the 5 offensive linemen for BYU, Utah probably still has the first 2 players you pick if you're building those units out.
Oh, absolutely. Utah's got – I wouldn't trade many players on either front for either side. Kairos Tonga could start at any school in the country, so I'm sure he'd be in the rotation for the Utes. He's a different style player. It's hard to compare because Leki Fotu is going to play in the NFL, as will John Penasini, and they're both going to get drafted. Kairos Tonga needs to have a big year this year at a lower weight to prove that he can be more consistent. Because last year he really flashed at times on film and made some amazing plays, and then he'd follow that up with a loaf. And you can't be out there loafing. That means not giving full effort. All D linemen do it, even the great ones. It's a staple of playing the defensive line, but it can't be because you got too much body weight. So there's a lot on the line for Kairos Tonga this year, but as far as the O-line goes, I think Brady Christensen and Kiefer Longson were both pretty highly recruited guys. James Empey was a highly recruited guy. Tristan Hodge ended up at Notre Dame, but he and Keanu Saliapaga are battling it out. Keanu Saliapaga could play left or right guard, and he had an offer to USC. So I don't know much about the right tackle, Harris LaChance, but our friend Mitch Harper, who we trust, said he was a standout in spring. This is the best BYU offensive line in 5 years, I bet, at least 5, maybe 5 to 10 years. But this is also the best D-line at Utah ever. And remember, it's not necessarily just about the O-line and the D-line. For once, I'm going to give some credit to the quarterback because it's going to be about Zach Wilson. The young fella, he's going to get hit, and then we'll see how much he's willing to press, how much he's willing to force some of these throws by hanging in the pocket, knowing he's going to get hit around the edge. Will BYU find a way to maximize their pass protection, but then also still get guys out in routes? Because if BYU's got to keep a running back and a tight end in to block, well, then that means Utah can double-team their receivers. You going to get open when Julian Blackman can cover you as well? Now, BYU's really going to struggle with that early on. Do we just send everyone out on a route and throw a lot of checkdowns? Or maybe they get aggressive early on.
I'm a little skeptical of BYU's run game, despite their good offensive line and good quarterback. We'll have to figure out if Lopini Katoa can step up and really be a go-to back, or if Tyson Williams is that guy. He wasn't that guy at his last school.
What about Soup?
No.
Emmanuel Asupka?
No.
You don't think he's in the mix?
He's your third back.
Okay.
So,
yeah, well,
no, I'm not really
remember
worried about who the third back is.
Tyson Williams and Asupka is from Rice, but Tyson Williams was at North Carolina. He signed with UNC, then transferred to South Carolina, and then he still had a few hundred yards, but he's a backup at an SEC school.
Yeah, he's good. He's fine. He's a 400 or 500 yard back. I think that's who he's going to be for BYU as well, and I think Lopini Katoa is probably going to win that job, which tells you about Tyson Williams. That's not a bad thing. Again, it's just that's the level of running back he is. He's more Armand Shine than he is Zach Moss, and he's probably not Armand Shine, to be fair. Armand Shine had 170 yards last year against Oregon. So I'm curious about the run game. I'm a little skeptical of that.
But we got to see if Lopini Katoa can hold up.
Which is going to put I agree, and that puts a lot of pressure on Zach Wilson's ability to throw the ball, and that feeds right into what Utah's secondary wants. So where are they going to go? They're going to go to the tight ends, and the tight end might be their best offensive player, and that's Matt Bushman. And so they're going to test Utah's linebackers. And if I was drawing up an offense to attack Utah's defense, don't you want to challenge Devin Lloyd and Francis Bernard early and see if they've got the ability to cover a guy as good as Matt Bushman?
Yeah, and Matt Bushman is going to be the key to BYU staying alive in this game early. It's a huge blow to the team. They lost Hank Tuipulotu the other day. He blew his ACL out, I believe, again, or he had another severe injury he was coming back from, and he'd had a great spring, so that stinks for BYU. They can move some guys around, but right now it's about Matt Bushman and MLP. Moroni Lualu Pututau. Now, I believe Dallin Holker is in the mix as well still, but either way, MLP's coming back from an injury too. So they're thin, and that's been BYU's problem throughout the last few years is that like a lot of Mountain West teams, the top of their roster is really nice, but they struggle with depth. They struggle with the bottom 70 or so players that are on scholarship.
I believe Dallin Holker, who had a breakout year last year, was a freshman, went on a mission.